Welcome to another episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we bring together tech leaders from all across the globe to share their time, their expertise, and their insights to help you grow your business. My name is Gary Lafferty, your host and creator of the Growth Focus Partnerships, where we help tech leaders build more powerful relationships, close bigger deals, and be seen and heard as the authority in their field. Now, I'm really excited to have our guest on this week. Today, we're going to be talking about just how do you come up from a background to becoming a tech founder? Exciting news about pivoting when everyone, and how to zig when everyone is zagging, and then how to literally grow as a person, as a founder, so that you can find the success that you deserve. So as I said, I'm really excited about today. And without further ado, Ty, it's an honor to have you here today. I've been really looking forward to this particular episode. Why don't we start off by you explaining a little bit about who you are and what is it that you do?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Gary. I'm really excited to be here too. My name is Ty Smith. I am the founder and CEO of CommSafe AI. We are a venture-backed generative AI company headquartered in San Diego, California. My story of how I got to this point in my life, and I'm 46 years old, is fairly interesting. You know, I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois, on the Illinois-Missouri border, but on the east side of the Mississippi River in Illinois. Graduated high school at 18, wasn't ready for college, but was really ready to get out of East St. Louis. I had a dream in my back pocket since I was 12 years old of becoming a Navy SEAL someday. And so when I graduated high school, I joined the Navy. It was like, get me out of here, let's go. And ended up having a phenomenal career in the Navy. Spent the first 5 years as a military police officer. And then after the terror attacks of 9/11, made it through selection for the SEAL teams, went through BUDS training, advanced training, and ended up spending the next 14, 15 years as a special operations commando in the SEAL teams. And I was really, really fortunate throughout my military career that I had really good mentors. And so when I got to around the 15-year mark in my military career, these men and women were pulling me aside and saying, hey, are you thinking about your future after the military? Are you going to college? Are you networking? And so I started doing those things that they were guiding me to do in preparation for the next season of my life beyond the military. Unfortunately, ended up completing undergraduate studies, graduate studies, and dove, headfirst into entrepreneurship at the end of a 2-decade military career. And so, I like to say that it has been quite the journey. It's been very exciting. Sometimes it's been more exciting than others, but it has been quite the journey.
Well, we're going to delve into all types of things on this particular episode. But one thing that I'm sure everyone wants to know is that how do you go from special warfare, Navy SEAL, military style to say, do you know what? I'm going to build a company instead. I'm not going to be with anybody else. I'm not going to go from the military to an employee. I'm just going to go and build a company. What was that mindset shift that you had that said, okay, I'm going to go from one extreme to the other?
Yeah, and I love the way you put it, because it's absolutely one extreme to the other, because entrepreneurship has proven to be the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've done some really hard things in my life. But my plan was to go from the SEAL teams to the FBI. I wanted to be an FBI agent. My mom's retired police officer, so I wanted to follow her into law enforcement. And I was in graduate school at University of Southern California, SC, Fight On. And, at that university, they feed everyone entrepreneurship Kool-Aid. It's like the moment you get to school, they're like, here is your entrepreneurship Kool-Aid. You're going to go start businesses once you leave this school. And so I ended up turning the role that I had already been assigned with the FBI down, because I was in graduate school one day, and it was the day that the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, California was shot up by a radicalized Islamic couple, killed a bunch of people at their holiday Christmas party. And so a couple of weeks after that, my ex-wife at the time, her colleague, she is a physician, and her colleagues from the medical field were calling me asking for help, and they all sounded the same. We're scared. We don't know what to do. You understand this kind of stuff. Will you please come and talk to us about it and help us? And after doing that a few times for free, as you can imagine, it was like I could hear my entrepreneurship professor in the back of my mind saying, hey, you're onto something here. people are seeing value in you that is worth something. And so I took that thinking very linearly, just like a dude, and was like, okay, I'm going to start a business around this. And so I ended up turning down the role with the FBI, and I built my first company throughout my last 6 months in the SEAL teams and my last 6 months of graduate school at USC. I built a technology-enabled security consultancy called Vigilance Risk Solutions, and fortunately found a good deal of success building that company. Fast forward, it would later become CommSafe AI, but that's how I started the entrepreneurship journey, was by something happening and me seeing that something happen and realizing, hey, I have an answer to that problem. And so I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to find the courage to go and try to solve this problem. But that's how it started. And I think that when I look back now, that message is crystal clear. Like I was telling you before we started, I've recently launched another business. And when it comes down to it, it's simply me sitting back and going, hey, I have all this experience now. I have all of this education. I've done all of these things. That's value inside of me that is worth something to the market. And so it's up to me to figure out, okay, how do I deliver this value to the market? But that was how I started.
Sure, I love the time that you said, you found a problem, you're just a problem solver, and you said, right, I can fix that problem. Let me go out and fix it. And I think in tech, the industry that we have, and obviously through, all the interviews that we've had on this show, plus all my clients, one of the things that come up time and time again is this mistake of I'll build it and they will come. This attitude that this is going to be so great, this field of dreams. I want to be the entrepreneur. I'm going to build this product, build this service, and it'll be fun. But in reality, it doesn't. Where I found successful entrepreneurs are really those that are problem solving. They know a client has a problem or a niche has a problem, and they go, I can go out and solve it. So tell us a little bit about, for those who don't know about CommSafe AI, what problem are you solving and who is it built for?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So CommSafe AI is the world's first pure on-premises sentiment analysis and anomaly detection machine. This is a truly generative AI platform. We sell it primarily to large enterprises that have more than 1,000 employees, and they implement the technology behind their firewall. It's completely siloed and secured. Their data never leaves their environment, and they connect it to their email channels like Outlook email, Google Suite email, and their chat channels like Microsoft Teams and Slack. And we consider this platform to be business intelligence at a level in which the enterprise has never experienced. Because with this platform, the enterprise gets to define their own risk. And then the technology will find that risk for them in real time if it's originating in email channels or chat channels. And the reason why the definition of the risk is so important is because people are different. Businesses are different. And so you can take the Walt Disney Company and you can take the Hershey Company and sit them right next to one another. And both companies can implement the technology and say, hey, we want to use this technology to spot insider threat risks in real time as they happen so that we can get ahead of it and it doesn't cost the business time, money, resources, and talent. But the problem with generic technologies that are out there, you just try to layer them on top of Disney and Hershey, that's not going to work so well because Disney's definition of insider threat could be completely different from Hershey's definition of insider threat. And so what's really cool about our technology is that it is bespoke to the enterprise and it learns their environment and their definition of those risks, whether it's insider threat, prospective revenue churn, harassment, and discrimination. It doesn't matter. It is up to the enterprise to define the risks that they want to utilize the technology to keep them ahead of. So this is a pure business intelligence platform that allows enterprises to get ahead of risk before it costs them time, money, and talent.
I'm absolutely fascinated by what you just said there about the fact that it is the preemption. It's almost like we're now moving so far into the future where we can preempt a problem before it comes, because cybersecurity is meant to be preemptive, but predominantly it tends to be reactive as opposed to preactive as to what it is. So I'm really great that, I'm fantastic that you talked about that and you're coming out as one of the first people to do that. So let's dig into growth. You've obviously worked with big companies, like you said, 1,000 employees more, Disney, Hershey, but what's actually working to generate you your leads today? What is your go-to-market, and how you, so what do you find to be working for you in your particular niche market?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that we're still figuring that out, Gary, because we're still relatively early in the market with this technology. We took the beta platform to market over the last couple of years and worked with some pretty big companies to kind of iron out the kinks and learn a tremendous amount from them. And I want to be very clear, we have not proven this technology with the Walt Disney Company. The Walt Disney Company was one of my customers in one of my previous businesses. So I'm really proud to know that I've built a business that enabled us to sell to Disney, but they're not working with CommSafe AI. And I think that when it comes down to it, these organizations, they're kind of catching up to where our mindsets were a few years ago. And that, when I took that situation that I explained that happened with the Inland Regional Center, it was like from the very beginning, hey, we were talking to organizations trying to prevent that from happening. And so that's ultimately how we came up with the idea for CommSafe AI, is that like, hey, we've got to find a way to keep organizations to the left of boom. And so we started doing a tremendous amount of investigation, analyzing these situations, what happened, how did the organization respond to it, who was involved, why didn't they act at the time that this intelligence came out, so on and so forth. And it just led us to a point where we realized we had to do a tremendous amount of evangelism in the market, so that, because we were really early, Gary, we started building the beta platform at the same time that OpenAI still had ChatGPT in stealth. Like, no one was thinking about AI. And so we looked up and realized that we were going to have to do a tremendous amount of evangelism in the market, kind of preparing the world for the consumption of AI. If you mentioned AI during that time, like 5 years ago, people were still looking at you like you were the devil, and so we had to also figure out, okay, well, how do we evangelize? How do we do it without scaring the what out of people? How do we do it without sounding like, we believe that the Terminator and Skynet's going to come down from the sky and take over everything? But we found a way to do it, and we became thought leaders. We linked up with other thought leaders that were trying to figure out this problem as well, and how to get the world to really open up to the idea of artificial intelligence. And when you fast forward to where we are now, fortunately, we survived that period of time where it was just really difficult to even talk about artificial intelligence, because people were so uncomfortable with it, to the point where we really don't have to do that much evangelism anymore. Businesses are understanding currently, and we're almost to Q2 of 2025, finally, that, hey, artificial intelligence is coming, whether we like it or not. We have to figure this out, and we have to figure out how to utilize it within our business. And we have to figure out how to do it faster than our competitors are realizing how to utilize it. And so it isn't even that big of a lift anymore to get in the conversations with the organizations. I think that the most important thing that we do, the most important thing that's gotten us to where we are right now, the reasons behind why we rebuilt our platform over the last 7 months and why we rebuilt it the way that we did, is like, man, you have to find a way. And this was a massive lesson for me as an entrepreneur, Gary. You have to find a way to figure out exactly what that problem is for the customer that is keeping them up at night. And I've also learned that not everyone has that gift. Not everyone has that talent of listening. And I mean listening beyond what the person is saying, so that you actually get to the nucleus of the problem, because they're never going to tell you what the problem actually is. And a lot of times they don't even understand what it is or how to explain it. And so that was a big lesson for me, was understanding that for me personally, I'm not necessarily that person that should be leading that conversation with a customer in order to figure out what the problem is, so that we can build the right solution to solve it. And so I had to learn to go out and find those people. And that's why I have an incredible product leader now. But that for us is the key, is having the right person or people in front of that prospective customer or that current customer, listening and figuring out exactly what the problem is. And can we even apply artificial intelligence to solving that problem? And if so, how? and getting together and on the same page with that organization so that they feel like they have complete say in control in the solution that we're turning over to them, whether it's a solution that we've already built and we're just adding features so that it now fits within this organization and solves the problem they want it to solve, or whether we have to build something brand new. But that has been one of the biggest lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur is listening is absolutely a critical skill in entrepreneurship. And just because you're the founder and CEO doesn't mean that you're the right person to sit in that role and listen to what it is that the customer needs.
That really is a fascinating way to look at things, as you say, because we always tend to think that the founders have to be at the forefront, and they have to be at the forefront of some things, and some of the things we're going to come on to in a bit in this episode. But I know that, when we've been speaking before, you've now interviewed over 100 of leaders before you actually said, okay, this is what we're actually going to do.
Mm-hmm.
How would you recommend that? I mean, even would you recommend that to other founders who are listening here and watching, that you've got to put the boot work in, you've got to go there and start interviewing and literally look people in the eye, and as you say, listen, really not just hear them, but listen to what they're actually saying. Is that something that you would recommend any founder to be doing or to get it done?
100%. In fact, Gary, I think that a lack of doing that on the part of a lot of founders has a lot to do with the fact that 8 to 9 out of 10 of our peers fail at startup. I think that is one of the reasons why is because it's a very heavy lift. It's a lot of work. And again, like you may not even be the right person to do that. There's a lot of stuff you have to figure out in order to even go do those interviews. Like
Can
who
I just
cares if
quickly
you
there,
have,
Ty, and just say why? I mean, you've mentioned that a couple of times now.
yeah.
Why do you believe that? And I love it because I don't think I've heard anyone else say that, listen, you might not be the right person to go out and do these interviews
Mhm.
as a founder. Why do you believe that is the case, that you may not be the right person? Because so for those who are listening going, well, how do I know? How do I know if I'm the right person to go and do those interviews? As Ty says, we've got to go and do them. But how do I know if I should get someone or should it be me? Could you delve a little bit deeper into that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that question. It allows me to go down a rabbit hole a little bit. So for me, leadership is critically important. And one of the lessons that I learned as a leader in the special operations community is that people are different. Everyone is different. It's like we're all different. We're all the same at the same time. And people have different personalities. For me, I'm what the world considers an alpha. So like you said, I'm a problem solver. I'm a go-getter. I'm not going to sit around and wait for some hero to show up and save me. Like, no, that I am that guy. I'm going to get up and save myself. Right. But with that being said, I tend to be a very aggressive person. And again, like I have one gear, it is forward, and one speed, it is fast. Right. And so I've identified within myself that it's not always the case, but it is a great likelihood that once my mind is set on something, and this is what I want to achieve, AKA selling this platform to an organization or my idea to an organization, that I'm such an alpha, I'm such an aggressive person that even though they're answering my questions, and what I was going to say before that was like, hey, first we got to make sure we're asking the right questions. Who cares if you're asking these people questions if you're not asking the right questions, and your personality also goes into figuring out what are the right questions to ask. But I found that I have the tendency to almost like hear what I want to hear from the people that I'm interviewing, right? And it really started to stand out to me once I brought on board David Foster, our current product leader, who is phenomenal. And he and I would be sitting in the same conversations, and he would hear the customer say something totally different from what I heard. And when he would explain it to me, like, this is what I heard them say, not only would it blow my mind because I was like, that's not what I heard them say at all, but it would blow my mind because I would immediately go, and you're right. Oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Why didn't I hear that? Because now that I hear you say it, it makes total sense. That's what they're saying, especially when I compare it to the rest of the notes that I have written down here. And so I think that everyone is different. And that also lends to one of the lessons in entrepreneurship that I've learned, Gary, is that like everyone has their roles. So for me, as a CEO in a technology company, I've learned that, hey, my lanes are very linear: fundraising and selling, vision and strategy, and building and running a good team. And that encompasses making sure that I have people like the right product leader that understands how to listen and pull information out of customers. And anything outside of those lanes, I try to stay away from it. I find the subject matter experts that are really good at it and really passionate about it. And then I give them the resources that they need to succeed, and I get the hell out of their way so that they can go and succeed. But it took me a long time to learn those lessons.
Yeah, that is a really fascinating thing, and I think those for listening here, what a brilliant insight. You dropped quite a lot of little truth bombs there, and people, I really suggest that if you missed them, rewind this because there was a lot. Know what your lanes are. So let me just recap what I heard there. Know what your lanes are. Just because you're the founder, the CEO, doesn't necessarily mean you have to have your fingers and toes in every single piece of the pie. Having an understanding of it, fantastic, but know what your swim lane is. If you just follow your swim lanes, you know what's right, and what you can't do, put on to somebody else. And if you can't do it now, really start looking at that towards the future, because that's really going to help you. So let's stay with the CEO founder swim lanes for a little bit. We know, and as you know, and everyone listening here knows, that there's an element of founder-led sales, whether you're in $1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. There's still an element of founder-led sales there. The founder is still involved somewhere along the sales. But you and I are both great believers in founder-led marketing as well, and authority positioning and positioning yourself as an authority within your field. How important has you, as the founder and CEO, using founder-led marketing to grow your company?
Oh my gosh, I love that question so much because I am experiencing that right now. So over the last couple of years, I have been just like poked over and over and over and over again by my mentors and a couple of my largest investors. So for those of you that don't know, a lot of people know already, but David Crane, the CEO of Google Ventures, is a really close friend of mine. He is also one of my investors, and he is my lead mentor. And over the last couple of years, David, along with my product leader and senior advisor, David Foster, along with several other of my mentors, were really kind of poking me and nagging me and going, "Hey, you're a special person. You're not like other people." And that's not them saying that I'm better than anyone, because I'm not, but I'm just different. And therefore, the world needs to hear from you. They need to know who you are and why what you're doing is important to you, and what your vision for it is, and how it's going to affect the world and make the world a better place. Because you're one of those founders that's actually genuinely interested in making the world a better place. So you have to come out of your shell, and you have to go out and talk to people, and not just evangelize what you're doing and why, but you have to evangelize yourself and that higher self that's driving you to do all of this. And that's why over the last year or so, I started filming little, 2-minute all the way out to 20-minute, snippets to rants, and dropping them online on LinkedIn. And I'm going to be doing the same thing with a new company I just started, Hero Consulting, primarily because I'm starting to pick up, what they are putting down. Customers are also people. These are human beings, and we have all, at some point at least started to learn the lesson of, hey, like there's like 4 or 5 reasons why people buy, because we are people, we are emotional creatures, and you can have the best product in the world, you can be the best founder in the world, you can even be a good human being, but if no one knows who you are, how are they ever going to discover that you are a good human being and what's in your heart is actually genuine and pure, and you're not just trying to go out and make a bunch of money? Is it okay to make a bunch of money? Sure. I want to do that just like every other founder. I have a family to provide for, and I want to leave an inheritance for my children's children, like the Lord tells us to do. But in order for me to do that, I have to actually go out and talk to people and come out of my shell and let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is why it is important. And so I think that it's really important for founders to go out and evangelize. And that's that's a part of your strategy. That is also a part of you building a good team, because now you're going to get a following behind you, and people are going to want to jump on board this journey with you. It is also a part of how you come into syndication and how you can attract investors, because they're like, okay, that's the kind of founder that I want to bet on. That's the kind of human being that I want to work with. That's the kind of leader that we can trust to do what he or she is actually telling us as investors they can do. That is the kind of person that's going to bring in other big name investors that's also going to affect our fund, and it's going to de-risk the deal. Now we don't have to worry about whether they can attract talent because people are just going to be gravitating toward this kind of human being and this kind of mission. So yeah, I think that is really, really important. And it's something I've started to do over the last couple of years at the urging of my mentors.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that because this is definitely our wheelhouse. About building authority, and I really just want to dial back a little bit on something you said. It's almost like an invisible ROI that you mentioned there. Again, you just drop this truth bomb and you move on. I think, well, hold on, there's something that's really important. It's not only about investors. We think if we do marketing, founder-led marketing is about visibility towards investors, but it's more than that. What investors are looking for is a growth, and can we see growth in that person? And in order to get growth, you need a team. Now, if you can have a team that's gravitating, to use your words there, gravitating towards this person, that's somebody I want to invest in because he's got a product, he's got a service. Don't worry about that. Can he build a team and can he grow? Yes, he can, or he or she, because they have a passion that they're showing everybody. They're given a reason why to do it. And I think there's an ROI. If you want a great team, authority-led marketing. It's not just for investors. It's just not for clients. It's for building a great team. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So that being said, founder-led marketing, there's so much noise out there, especially in AI. We started talking about it straight away on this particular episode. You can't really have a tech podcast without mentioning AI. So how are you positioning yourself and CommSafe AI as credible and unique?
Well, fortunately, it goes back to what we were just talking about because I've been so blessed that I've been able to attract a world-class chief technology officer in Dr. Patrick Nunnally, who is literally one of the world's most renowned artificial intelligence experts. And the way that Patrick came to us was by me doing exactly what it is that I just talked to you about. He saw me on LinkedIn talking to people about, hey, this is the problem I want to solve. And this is why it's important to me because I love human beings. God created us all and we shouldn't be hurting one another. Trust me, I've lived that life long enough. I know that it doesn't get us anywhere. There's only death and darkness and destruction at the end of that path. I want to spend the rest of my life helping people, growing people. And this is a problem I've identified. And I feel like my unique skill set is aimed toward figuring out a solution to this problem. And I think that we can utilize artificial intelligence to do it. And I'm not the only person that feels this way. I've got these awesome, brilliant people behind me, and they want to help me solve this problem. So let's go. And he saw that evangelism and literally reached out to me and said, hey, you don't know who I am, but this is who I am. I love what you're doing. I love your passion, your energy. I haven't seen this cool of a use for AI like in years, and I would love to help you. Maybe I can be an advisor. This is how I can help you. And that's how we started our relationship years ago. And then, you fast forward 2 or 3 years and he joined our company as our chief technical officer as he was exiting a company that he had been IPOing in the background for like 6 or 7 months before that. But that has been really, really helpful because now you don't just have this retired Navy SEAL out talking about AI as though I know what I'm talking about. It's like, no, I'm going to come over here, sit down and shut up, and I'm going to bring the big gun in, and he's going to talk to you about it. And that in itself lends so much credibility to me as a founder, to the business and what it is that we're trying to do, because we've showed that, hey, we can attract the big guns. We can bring in the big talent that actually knows what they are talking about. And when people like that start talking, the world shuts up and they listen. And again, that makes my job as a founder and CEO very easy because then I just get to go sit in the corner and be quiet and let the real, experts do their thing. And so that's been really helpful to me is finding the right people to put in the right roles.
Yeah, absolute key piece there. You got to have the right team members to grow. You can't just do everything yourself. Get the right people. So listen, we could keep talking forever, Ty. I always enjoy talking to you. Perhaps we should do a part 2. But because time is upon us, I've got this loaded question as a last question for you, Ty. If you had to give young Ty, mean, you've had a fantastic career. You know, as you said, you went through the Navy, you went through the SEALs, you went through SWAT, you started businesses, and where you are today. Now you're going off into hero consulting. There's so much there. If you had to give young Ty, and young Ty could be any age, one piece of advice when it comes to becoming successful, whatever successful means to you, what would that one piece of advice to young Ty be?
Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything else that you want in your life will automatically fall into place. Where it's supposed to, when it's supposed to. Seek your relationship with the kingdom of God first, and all of your dreams will come true. And it took me until and don't get me wrong, like I've always believed in God. I've always had a relationship with God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. But I was a young dude. I was a young alpha. I had to go out and go through some things first, you know. I had to nearly die a bunch of times first. I had to witness atrocities first. I had to witness my friends getting hurt. I had to experience loss, like real loss, not just like losing friends in combat, but life lessons, losing in life and experiencing that kind of loss in order to get to where I am in life now and just see things and people completely differently. And I woke up. You know, it was an awakening years ago, and it was a tearing down of my house that was built up on a faulty foundation in order to realize the foundation was faulty and I needed a new foundation so that I could build a house on it that would never be torn down. And if I could go back to my young self, that is exactly what I would tell him. No matter what you do, seek the kingdom of God first and never be afraid, and all of your dreams will come true.
Well, that's a lovely way to end this particular episode. Thank you very much, Ty. So if people want to get hold of you, Ty, potentially work with you, whether it's through CommSafe or Hero Consulting as a speaker and a leadership speaker, what is the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me via the CommSafe website at www.commsafe.ai. They can also get in touch with me if they're interested in my leadership, life coaching, and public speaking acumen by way of Hero Consulting website at www.wearehero.com. Also, I have a new Instagram profile, and my handle there is at Coach Ty Smith if you want to look me up there. And then obviously I'm very public on LinkedIn, and you can reach me on LinkedIn as well at Ty Smith 31.
Oh, well, I'll make sure all those links are in the show notes for you, Ty, so that people can just go, because no doubt they're going to want, wow, I'm going to need to speak to this guy. So, Ty, thank you very much for your time, your generosity, and your insights today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you, Gary. I'm looking forward to the next time.
And there will be a next time, I guarantee it. Thank you very much, Ty. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for yet another episode of the Growth Focus podcast. And as usual, if no doubt you've taken notes, please make sure you like and you comment so that other people can see what you've learned or what you found interesting or what your insights were. But more importantly, please make sure you share. We're all in this together as we're entrepreneurs and founders and CEOs of companies. Let other people grow as well and have an opportunity. So make sure that you share this episode, as like with the other episodes of the other leaders, and make sure you tune in for the next episode. So until then, keep working hard, be striveful, and be profitable. See you later. Bye-bye.